The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on Sports.
Welcome to hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Tuesday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid. He is DRS. I am BSS. We get you ready for first four action in the official beginning of the 2025 men's NCAA tournament tonight in Dayton, Ohio. We will look at our two games that we have in tonight's docket with a full breakdown of everything you need to know. And we will continue to set the stage, of course, for what we have the remainder of the big dance here in 2025. DRS, a jam-packed final hour ahead. We'll have our guide, TV Tom Vecchio, with his prop perspective on this Tuesday. Tom's so involved with college hoops now, even a pick for the first four. What else can't this guy do here on the Early Line?
Yeah, put him right between Kevin and Joe Lisi on the Saturday basketball show. Be the perfect fit in there. Got some hours available you can have fun with. Understand this about the March Madness tournament starting tonight, right? The official start really is Thursday because that's when you know where the teams are all slotted and play and away you go. But I always get a kick out of this. It's the same feeling I have for when you watch the NFL Hall of Fame game, which is the first preseason game of the year. Like, yeah, football's back. Then they'll jump tonight and they'll be like, I don't know about this first basketball game that I'm watching here, but I understand it's part of the hype, and I'll stick around, and maybe the second game will be better because you have better teams involved. But it is kind of funny the way it starts because we get excited. We're like, now who's this out here? Yeah. These are college teams? Yeah, that's the feeling that you get. So good luck with that.
So, of course, there are some delineations that you will see as you make your way through a field of 68.
You know what?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Like, I just want to say this, Ben, because sometimes the thoughts pop into my head. I'm getting older. I might forget about it. Why isn't the better game on earlier? Come on, this like I'm telling you right now.
I hear it. I hear it.
If Carolina goes at 6 o'clock tonight, we are all watching that as the first game against San Diego State. It's a legitimate game that has the peak of the interest. And you know how this works. Game one will go a little bit long. Game two tips off at 9:30. Like, honestly, guys, what are we doing in the TV studio booth? Stop it. Stop it. All right, there you go. Say my piece.
So, listen, I completely agree. And I don't mean to make this a selfish cry by any means, but it does get a little bit difficult for people that host a morning show and have to bring you all of the recap and review of all the madness that we see into the early morning hours of a night and then turn around and do it on a morning show. So there are going to be some nights where we're not going to get a lot of sleep. And that's okay, because the one thing that is better than sleep is the NCAA tournament, and I'm very excited for the first four to begin. I do agree, though, DRS, 6:30 p.m. tip for San Diego State and North Carolina. I am all for it. The two games tonight in Dayton, as we will detail. Our first matchup is a battle of 16 seeds and automatic qualifiers who won their conference tournament crown for that automatic bid. Out of the SWAC, it is Alabama State taking on the champions of the NEC, St. Francis, PA. And then, of course, the matchup to be the true 11 seed in the South region, North Carolina and San Diego State. Two of the Final Four teams into the field of 68. A lot to get to here, but we wanted to hear from the people, Donnie. Who's going to win tonight? Who is going to officially get credit for an NCAA tournament victory and march on to the round of 64? That was the question for all of you, and Fade the Public. Not incorporating the spreads, the Hornets of Alabama State, 3.5-point favorite. North Carolina, now a 4.5-point favorite against SDSU. So just give me a money line parlay. Who will win tonight's NCAA tournament first four games? We gave you all of the options, of course. In the public, in large part, DRS, back in North Carolina and Alabama State. The two favorites tonight at more than 43% of the vote. San Diego State and Alabama State, second most votes at 24%. Which way did DRS vote in this Fade the Public poll?
Yeah, the public, going with the public here and back in the public. That's UNC and Alabama State, 43%. But I went San Diego State and Alabama State because only 24% going with that. I just look at it like this. Like, if you're truly fading the public, like we, talking about the public, didn't think UNC was going to get a bid. Now that they did get a bid, we, the public, are like, yeah, easy victory in round number one, because apparently that's the way it's being bet right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook. I can't even believe we questioned UNC even getting in there. UNC should be in a Final Four team the way we're betting them tonight against San Diego State. So I just went double against the public by saying, you know what, Alabama State, slight public side tonight. San Diego State, completely not the public side tonight. That's the way I went. Like, how did we be, not saying we're turncoats, but how did we, keep Carolina out? Like, you see that meme? It's like, they take the sip of drinks, like, and then they switch their face, like, they don't like it so much. That's UNC. That's what we're doing here today. Yeah, come on. Who's doing this?
There is no doubt. When you look at the public betting information that we have, those stats on the FanDuel Sportsbook, 76% of the money on the spread is backing Carolina. That number yesterday in the low 80s of the percentages we saw in terms of your spread betting and the money that we were seeing on the FanDuel Sportsbook. There has been a little bit of buyback in the Aztecs. It is still a 4.5-point number, but when you and I were live together in studio yesterday, it was a 3.5-point spread. Overwhelming public sentiment backing UNC, which is interesting because there was overwhelming public sentiment that did not believe the Heels were deserving of being the Final Four team, the final team in to the NCAA tournament field of 68. Here is the positive for North Carolina. They understood the task at hand down the home stretch of the regular season. They would have some quad one opportunities against Duke. Outside of that, they could not afford a loss. And to UNC's credit, they didn't get that quad one win outright against the Blue Devils, but they also did not pick up another bad loss. 10 games, including both against the Blue Devils in the regular season finale, and of course in the ACC tournament semifinal. In those 8 other games, DRS, a perfect 8-0 for Carolina, covering the number in 7 of those 8 wins. So you can feel confident that if it's not against Duke, or maybe Clemson or Louisville in the ACC, or another quad one team, UNC is going to handle business. And I will say this, the net ranking's not really a part of our conversation now into the big dance, but San Diego State currently number 52 in the net. This is a neutral court game in Dayton, Ohio, which means it's technically a quad 2 game for North Carolina. Plan accordingly.
But also understand this, like sometimes you used to get the bump of, well, we're in the ACC. We're going to get the benefit of the doubt. We play great competition all the way through. The top 2/3 of this division, let's just say, or conference would be the best in the country. You go to Ken Palm's metrics here, Ben. I see number 5. It's the ACC. Who's right behind them? The Mountain West Conference. So you can't even take a look at, well, Carolina's a better team, better pedigree, better league. Not necessarily at this point. Right on the heels of that conference where they were absolutely fantastic this regular season, playing quality opponents on a night-to-night basis for the most part here. This isn't going to be a surprise. And this isn't a San Diego State that, hey, never heard of them before. This team's been prowling around in competition and doing quite well in the NCAA tournament. It's not as if like, hey, first time in 20 years, we're making a tournament appearance. That's not SDSU. Yep.
No, it's certainly not. San Diego State played in the national championship game in the 2023 Big Dance. North Carolina, as an 8 seed, played in the national championship game in 2022. In a first 4 matchup, we have 2 teams that played in 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournament title games. That is pretty impressive stuff. Now, the Mountain West has struggled at times throughout the NCAA tournament, and there has been this perceived notion that the ACC has had many down years in college basketball. Once the pinnacle of a conference in college hoops, the last few years, the ACC has not been as great throughout the regular season, has not had as many bids to the Big Dance, and yet when they get to the NCAA tourney, they make the most of it. NC State, a Final Four team a year ago. Of course, we had North Carolina and Duke both get to the Final Four 2 seasons ago. The ACC has performed well, even with the perceived weakness in their conference slates the last few years. Plenty more of a breakdown in first 4 action later. From Perspective with Tom Vecchio next.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The prop perspective on this Tuesday with TV Tom Vecchio of SportsGrid live right here on the Early Line. Tom, as always, we appreciate the time. We often refer to you as the jack of all trades. And when we have the NBA in action, the NHL regular season coming down to a close as well, the start officially of the Major League Baseball campaign in 2025 as of this Tuesday morning out in Japan. And first 4 action in the men's NCAA tournament. You are going to deliver on all fronts. Tom Vecchio, it is always a pleasure.
Of course, awesome time to be a sports fan. Arguably the first or second best month of the year for sports between March and October, whatever it might be. We had action early today. We'll have action late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Let's get into it.
Let's dive right into it, Vecchio. A 4-game slate around the association on this Tuesday evening. Late night in San Francisco. It's the Warriors hosting the Bucks. As we referred to earlier, Golden State saw its 7-game win streak snap last night, despite the Denver Nuggets not having Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, nor Christian Brown. And Steve Kerr said after the game, as Donnie referred to, that Steph Curry looked a little bit exhausted. He was 6 of 21, putting his status for tonight in question. And then quickly, the Warriors open up as a 3.5-point home underdog tonight in San Francisco against the Bucks. How are you approaching this game, Vecchio, as of this moment, with some status uncertainty on behalf of the Warriors?
Yeah, with Curry not expected, his status in the year, I'm not going to say he's not expected to play because that's not the official word. We just don't know what we're going to be getting from him. I don't mind taking a Cavs first half. I don't want to say the full game just because not the Cavs. The Bucks first half. Yeah. I want to take the Bucks first half because they're just not a team I've been able to trust. But if they do have a spot where, hey, Curry may not play, Draymond Green, et cetera, Jimmy Butler, if they're not going to be out there, the Bucks have to come out early and often. They have to get that scoring. We've seen them collapse in a lot of these recent games. They're just not a team that I want to trust for a full 4 quarters. So I'll be looking to the Bucks, assuming we get some positive injury news in their favor, seeing that we do see some Golden State Warriors players sitting out.
Yeah, always a tough time in the NBA betting season right now. Heading down the stretch here, some teams sitting players. And again, we handicap these games live on the air 10, 12 hours before some of these games even tip off, which includes a nightcap tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. That's the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Clippers here, looking for a bounce back and maybe a new win streak. You are favorite, talking about Cleveland, at -3.5 at the opening number. That has now since risen to 4 at this point. A lot of other outlets out there still 3.5s and 4s. A total 230.5. You see the graphic at 231. That's actually up an extra half point at 231.5. Cavs, Clippers tonight. West Coast action. Tom, what are you looking at?
Yeah, now we can get to the Cavs. -4. This is where I want to be going. Evan Mobley didn't play in their most recent game against the Magic. And I get it. Like, the Magic are fighting tooth and nail for every win they could possibly get. The Cavs, this win streak ends. I got to say, this is the time for the Cavs to have everyone out there, be fully healthy, and put up a good win. Because, we've seen some okay wins from them. They barely snuck away with a win against Brooklyn. They barely snuck away with the win against the Hornets back on, March 6th or March 7th. They need to, I'm not going to say right the ship because they're cruising, but they need to put together a full 4 quarters and come away with the win. So hopefully Mobley plays. He is officially listed as questionable. I'm already on the Cavs -4. If that number changes, so be it. But if he plays, that number is probably going to go to 4.5 or 5.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Vecchio. You saw that 16-game win streak snapped over the weekend by Orlando. But even toward the tail end of that 16-game win streak, when the Cavaliers were booked as 7, 8, 9, even double-digit point favorites, they weren't looking overly impressive, trying to find that footing, of course, down the home stretch of this regular season. With that being said, the Cavaliers still a 7.5-game lead for that top spot around the Eastern Conference. Vecchio, let's get into first 4 action, shall we? Tonight in Dayton, Ohio, our first 2 games officially of the 2025 men's NCAA tournament. The nightcap between North Carolina and San Diego State. The opening game of the Big Dance. The champions of the SWAC, Alabama State, 3.5-point favorite against the champions of the NEC, St. Francis, PA. Vecchio, what's your approach to the opening game at the first 4 tonight in Dayton?
So the approach I'll have tonight will be the approach I take for a lot of the early games on Thursday and Friday. First half under. Some of these teams coming out with a little bit of trepidation. Don't want to be pushing things too much, want to control the variance. So let's go to the first half under 65.5. Again, this is from a team level, also from the environment overall. Alabama State, they're 123rd in pace. St. Francis, 227. Neither of these teams hit the 3 at a high rate. We're talking 227 and 149th in the country. And again, these are not great offensive teams. We look at their KenPom ratings, they're both 270 and below. And looking at recent results from whether it be their conference tournaments or what have you, we're looking at games where it's the first team to 60, 65-ish. That's who wins that game, regardless of who their opponent might be outside of one of random 2 high-scoring games. So I want to take the environment overall. It's hey, they don't want to run up and down the court. They want to control things as much as possible. And that means limiting the possessions, playing things close to the vest, and that's going to lead to first half unders. I wouldn't mind to see was this game 138.5 total. If this drops to 125 in game, I wouldn't be shocked if I jump in on a live in-game total and still have a nice way to find a bit of a middle with a 13 or so point gap.
Let's take a look at some Thursday action of the first full day of the tournament here as we wait for the March Madness brackets here to start surging for us. High Point Purdue, a 12:40 start, early one here. We got line movement, people. Opened up at the FanDuel Sportsbook 9.5. We're down to 7.5. The people buying High Point out here, Tom. You buying High Point?
Yeah, I'm on High Point at 9.5. I got them on Sunday night when everything came out. They can shoot well. We saw a big comeback from them when they won their conference tournament. That was a game that I was on for in-game live with Jordan Air. We were talking like they can shoot well. They have the three potential. They can lock things down. So I'll take a 9. And we're not talking about like Purdue. So I'm like, oh, wow, we got to be worried about Purdue. Like they ended the season terribly, despite some wins at the very end. They were on a really rough stretch. So I'll take High Point at plus 9.5 with some juicy closing line value.
72% of the money on the spread back in the Panthers and the champions out of the Big South. That is the Huss Bus. Tom Vecchio is hopping on. Vecchio, outside of that, one more play tonight for you in your top props for this Thursday on the ice. Who does it involve?
Let's just turn to Dallas at home. Wyatt Johnston over 2.5 shots on goal. Dallas coming off a couple losses. I'm not going to say they're bad losses. They lost to Winnipeg. They lost to Colorado. All great teams, but they're back at home against the terrible Anaheim Ducks. Since the start of March, the Ducks, they've allowed 69.01 total shot against per 60 minutes in 5-5 situations. That's the second worst in the league. They need one of their best young players to show up and right the ship at home, pick up some wins.
Tom Vecchio, as always, your time and your insight invaluable. Thank you very much. We'll talk more about the NBA on the other side of the break here on TEL.
Kind of like this. I know Bosa gets banged up and he doesn't play a lot, but for 1 year, I could take a shot.
And guys go there and they play well. Guys go there and they have success. Guys go there, they go to the playoffs. And look, I thought Von Miller sucked. I think Joey Bosa is way better than Von Miller, not back in the day, but he is now.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sports.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Gators' resume is excellent. We know how hard it is to win on the road in college. They've won at Auburn and at Bama.
Michigan State is 17-5 in quad one, quad twos. Are they a one seed? I think not. They may make claim if they make a run and there's craziness in the SEC.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just a 4-game slate tonight around the association. We'll preview at least 3 of them and maybe even a thought on that 4th and final game. DRS, again, as we have often said, when we sit here at near 10:30 a.m. Eastern time for a game that is happening after 10 p.m. Eastern time out in Northern California, where status is always uncertain for a team's best player, kind of difficult to give you our full thoughts on this handicap. Not entirely sure what the availability is going to look like. Of course, we are referring to Milwaukee and Golden State tonight in San Francisco. Steph Curry, his status up in the air. It is why the Dubs are now a 3.5-point home favorite hosting Milwaukee tonight. Golden State saw their 7-game win streak come to a close yesterday against the shorthanded Nuggets. Steve Kerr said after the game, Steph looked a little bit tired, trying to power the Golden State Warriors to an 8th consecutive win. Total stands at 227 and a hook. With the uncertainty around Golden State, what's the approach, DRS, for this one?
It should be only one approach, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. As we saw the overnight line here at the FanDuel Sportsbook in New Jersey, -3.5. Not towards the Bucks. That was actually the Golden State Warriors. But now you see the 3.5 switching over to the Bucks. Even updated from the graphic that we have on the screen, the total in this game is dropping 233.5, the opening number, now down to 227.5. Because sometimes you do have to take a coach at his word. Hey, that was a bad loss for us tonight, and maybe we just are tired. But also understand this. Like, you're home again. You were just embarrassed the night before. Do you just want to lay down in this game and let the Bucks come in and win, knowing that you're jockeying for playoff position? Or is this one of those like, boy, we should have won last night. And yes, Steph is tired. Okay, we won last night. Now we can rest a couple stars tonight, still put out a good performance and maybe win, but that's what we're worried about. And again, we are handicapping this game 12 hours before it tips, but just looking at what I saw yesterday from the effort of the team and the coach saying we're tired and it's a back-to-back, shouldn't that lead to, hey, there's bigger things down the road here for Steph Curry? If I need to give him a breather tonight, I don't see how the fact that the Warriors can win even at home. So I went with the Bucks. I think the Bucks are the right play tonight just based on what I heard from Kerr, but we might get a starting lineup where Steve Kerr's like, yeah, you know what? Talked to the guys, had a great shoot-around, seemed energized. We were embarrassed last night. Let's go out and get a victory tonight. That changes the scenario where now you might be looking at that -3.5 for the Warriors was the correct side. But for me, right now, it's the Bucks.
It is interesting, DRS. You can understand maybe taking one game off so you're ready for your final 10 or 12 when you're battling for playoff positioning around the Western Conference, but you would not be expecting to kind of take any games off at this stage of the year. Golden State is 39-29. Right now, they have a slightly better win percentage than that of Minnesota, who has one more win but one more loss. Golden State trying to stay out of the play-in tournament. Currently in the 6th spot, the T-Wolves just barely behind them as that 7 seed in the Western Conference. Again, Golden State this year as an underdog, 13-11 against the spread. Milwaukee has dropped 4 of its last 6 games, including on Sunday at home against OKC, but they were an underdog in that one. In fact, DRS, in Milwaukee's last 5 covers, they have been booked as a favorite in all 5. All 5 of those games also pushing to the over. Tonight's total, as we shared, 227.5. Starting a new streak is what the Cavaliers have done many a time this year. They're on the road tonight as a 4-point favorite in Los Angeles. Over the weekend, beat by Orlando. That 16-game win streak came to a close. 231 and a hook, the total in L.A. How do you break down this matchup tonight between the Cavaliers and the Clippers?
It looks like we're full go, both sides here. Garland, Mitchell, Strus, Mobley, and Allen for the Cavaliers in that anticipated starting lineup. Then for the Los Angeles Clippers, Harden, Dunn, big guy, big Will. Norm Powell's in that lineup along with Kawhi Leonard and Ivica Zubac. So I like the home team here. I do like the points, but I can see also the public saying, okay, line opened up at 3.5. You see the graphic at 4.5. It's now back down to 4. But I think the total makes sense. I think we get back to more of an up-tempo pace. Anytime you're going to play the Orlando Magic, you say, hey, you can't beat them. All right, it's not really the tempo we like. I think the 231 might be in jeopardy. But if I had to lay it here, you're looking at the Cavaliers. Used to winning basketball games, lost. I love a team that can get refocused right away. I think the Cavaliers win the game, but I might be more confident in there in the over 231.5.
And it wasn't like this 16-game win streak came out of nowhere, or the Cavs are not used to having a long win streak snap this year and then starting a new one. The Cavs have not covered in 4 of their last 6, which is unusual for the NBA's best covered team. I would look to Cleveland tonight, under in 5 of their last 6 as well. The Cavs, a 7.5-game lead for the 1 spot in the Eastern Conference over the Boston Celtics. The C's a 13.5-point favorite at home tonight inside TD Garden against the Brooklyn Nets. Over under 214. Donnie, anything else that needs to be shared about this one?
No, not really. Bad basketball team, good basketball team. Good luck betting it. How about that?
The Hornets and the Hawks in Charlotte, if that's your kind of thing. Our thing, though, first 4 in Dayton next.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The 2025 Men's NCAA Tournament officially begins tonight in Dayton, Ohio. We've got a doubleheader of first four action. So let's get you set with every single angle that you need for tonight's beginning in the big dance. DRS, we start with the nightcap in Dayton. Two of the final four teams into the field of 68, including the last team into the big dance, a controversial selection in the field of 68. That would be North Carolina. And yet, Carolina, who many thought was not deserving of an NCAA tournament bid, 4.5-point favorite against San Diego State. It is our nightcap tonight in Dayton, Ohio, our second of two first four games. Total stands at 142 and a hook. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Eels. That total at 142.5. DRS, where do you begin your breakdown of this matchup tonight between the Aztecs and the Tar Heels?
Yeah, take a look at the North Carolina offense versus the San Diego State defense. The one thing that we always know, the calling card for San Diego State is not an up-tempo offense. It's playing really good defense, 13 in the country in efficiency. Now, sometimes you say, well, Donnie, how does this differentiate from you taking a look at like versus like competition, which means we play in the same conference? We just talked about just a short while ago where you're looking at both of these conferences back-to-back here. So it's not as if, well, how do I compensate for a team that plays in the SEC versus a team that plays in like the NEC at that point, right? It's like, wow, can I really trust that they're all that efficient? Well, that efficiency goes out the door when the five guys on the other team are so much better than you. Hey, I'm used to getting off my three-point shot. Now I can't. Yeah, of course, because the other guys are 6'5", you're 6'2", and are faster than you than your guard play at this point. So that's what I'm trying to factor in, because Carolina does have a very good offense. The one thing that we do know is San Diego State's defense, Ben, is good. It is efficient, but it will let you shoot the three-point shot, but will defend the heck out of it. You're taking a look at a team 354th, Ben, in the nationally at allowing you to shoot the three-point shot. So if you're like BYU, hey, man, sign me up at this point. That's not necessarily Carolina, but they will defend it. Also understand this. I don't know if it's me just watching, like sometimes the basketball court in Dayton. I remember a couple years where the nets looked like they were really short and the rims maybe weren't all that forgiving. I always take a look at that. So if I say to myself, a team that's going to let you shoot the three-point shot and defend it, where that could be the majority of your shots, I usually automatically lean towards that team because San Diego State's offense isn't overly relying on the three-point shot, and it's not crazy statistics from UNC from the three-point line. So as crazy as it sounds, like UNC is a very good offensive team. And San Diego State will let you shoot the three-point shot. But again, that's not really the calling card of UNC. They'll knock down maybe some three-point shots, but you talk about that stingy defense, Ben. Look at the point distribution. 360th in the nation at allowing you to score inside. That means those points are hard to come by. So point number one is, we'll give you the three. We don't think you'll knock them down. But if you want to do come down low here, we'll defend the heck out of it. I like San Diego State in the points tonight. I just think that matchup, UNC's offense versus San Diego State's defense, that's where it's going to be won. On the neutral court, I always lean defense.
And this line opened at 3.5. It is now 4.5 in favor of Carolina. We have told you more than 70% of the money when it comes to the spread bets backing the Heels tonight. And Donnie, you look at the four factors, right? You look at the style of plays that we see on Ken Palm. So some of it is cause and effect, right? San Diego State has a lot of length. We'll talk about the Aztecs defensively in just a moment. Because it is difficult to score against SDSU in the post and near the rim, obviously then opponents are going to have to hoist more threes than maybe they would like. 47% of the opponents taking or of the opponents' field goals this year from deep against San Diego State this season. Some of that blends into each other. It's not like San Diego State doesn't guard the three-point line just because of how difficult it is to score near the rack. That allows more threes to be taken against SDSU. Part of that reason, again, is because of the length. Jared Coleman-Jones down low for San Diego State, and a big addition for the Aztecs. Magoon Gawath, the 7-foot freshman, is back tonight for SDSU. He has not played since the end of February. He was not there in the opening round defeat in the Mountain West Tournament in Las Vegas last week for Brian Dutcher and his team against Boise State, which makes things difficult for UNC as they try to attack the rim and could lead to more mid-range or even deep-range threes from beyond the arc. 13th most efficient defense, that is San Diego State nationally. 22nd most efficient offense, that is UNC nationally. That is kind of the crux of this matchup, really, as you break it down.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you're trying to manage, because we don't have really a backlog. Like, hey, man, remember last 2 times North Carolina played Duke, or last 3 times, we should say, since they played in the ACC? You're taking a look at like versus like opponents when there really isn't any like versus like opponent, but you can take stock in, again, 2 really good conferences where you're trusting the depth of these 2 teams. We always thought San Diego State would probably get in. They did. North Carolina was a little bit more of a question mark, but here we are on a Tuesday night in Dayton, and I'm just going to rely on it. I know Tom Vecchio was talking about, I think, game number 2, the under in the first half. All these games in Dayton, for me, I'm probably looking more towards the unders than I am for the overs at this point. So we have some time today to figure it out, because this doesn't start till 9 o'clock tonight. Maybe even looking at like a team total to the under. Is that the better wager to go with UNC? We know they like to get out and run, but at the same time, San Diego State does play defense, and you take a look at the average length of possession on defense for San Diego State, 342nd, which means you're going to have to earn every point you get. And it's a great point you bring up, a 7-footer added to the equation, where it's not so much that the guy can be dynamic, but RJ Davis, hey, let me just take it to the rim. Oh, now I can't do that kick out for a 3 and the threes aren't working. Advantage San Diego State. We'll see how it plays out, but this is a good basketball game with, I think, a pretty clean handicap on not just saying like, hey, it's a coin flip. There are some intricacies that I think you could take advantage of tonight.
Of course, San Diego State made the national championship game just 2 big dances ago, coming up short against UConn, then had to play Dan Hurley's Huskies last year in the Sweet 16 as well. A lot of those guys no longer there. Nick Boyd is. He will lead kind of that backcourt for Brian Dutcher and the Aztecs tonight. Of course, nobody has played more ACC hoops in their careers than that of RJ Davis. He is the veteran leader for Hubert Davis and this team tonight. Elliot Cadeau, a really talented point guard. Facilitation is what he does best for the Heels. You would kind of give the post presence the edge for San Diego State, the backcourt the edge for North Carolina. SDSU DRS, 4 times in non-conference play against 4 quality opponents, all in the big dance, booked as an underdog. 2-2 both against the spread and straight up. Those 2 outright victories for San Diego State as a dog early in non-con play over Creighton and Houston. There is some quality metrics for San Diego State. There is not really that for North Carolina. And again, that is the argument against the Heels into the big dance. They are 1-12. 1-12 in quad 1 games this season. We don't really use quad 1, 2, 3, or 4 anymore for the NCAA tournament, but just based on technicality, San Diego State checks in at number 52 in the net rankings entering tonight. Neutral floor game. This would be a quad 2 game for UNC. Here's where I will give Carolina some credit. Donnie, if you want to argue the idea of battle tested, it's one thing to play a bunch of very difficult teams. It's another thing to win those games against that very tough competition, something UNC did not do. But the Tar Heels, against competition they were expected to beat, they made good on those numbers, and they looked impressive in doing so. Final 10 games for UNC this season. 2 against Duke, regular season finale, ACC tournament semifinal. The other 8, UNC won, and they covered in 7 of those 8 victories. The public expecting Carolina to do that tonight in the first 4.
Yeah, and no doubt about it. They're betting accordingly at this point, and it's certainly going to be a heavy favorite team just because of the name itself, like the Yankee tax that you get in Major League Baseball. But understand this, too. It's not as if you can just go with the old adage, hey, man, we play in the ACC, as I said, versus the Mountain West Conference. That's not the case here. Like, San Diego State had an unbelievably tough schedule with a lot of tournament teams in that division where they can go toe-to-toe. And as you pointed out, beating Houston and beating Creighton, they're not too big for the stage here. They're used to this stage. No. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. That's a quality game on night number 1 of the NCAA tournament for sure.
A national championship run for Brian Dutcher and the Aztecs 2 tournaments ago. A second weekend appearance in the Sweet 16 last year. The first game of the big dance. The first in the first 4. That's next.
I know Bosa gets banged up and he doesn't play a lot, but for 1 year, I could take a shot.
And guys go there and they play well. Guys go there and they have success. Guys go there, they go to the playoffs. And look, I thought Von Miller sucked. I think Joey Bosa is way better than Von Miller, not back in the day, but he is now.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sports.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Gators' resume is excellent. We know how hard it is to win on the road in college. They've won at Auburn and at Bama.
Michigan State is 17-5 in quad 1, quad 2s. Are they a 1 seed? I think not. They may make claim if they make a run and there's craziness in the SEC.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Our first of the first 4 tonight in Dayton, Ohio, as we continue to break it down and preview this matchup here. The champions out of the SWAC, Alabama State, into the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2011. And the unlikely title winners in the NEC. That was St. Francis, PA, pulling off the upset in the tournament final against Central Connecticut. The Blue Devils of Central Connecticut entered that matchup winners of 14 consecutive games, the nation's longest active win streak. The Red Flash and Frankie the Friar had opposite ideas. So St. Francis into the big dance for the first time since 1991 as a D1 program for more than 7 decades, just the second ever birth in the big dance. In DRS, St. Francis will be the 20th ever team since the field expanded in 1985 to reach the men's NCAA tournament with a sub-500 record. The Red Flash are 16-17 straight up. The Hornets of Alabama State, 3.5-point favorite tonight against the Red Flash of St. Francis, PA. Our total stands at 138.5. How do you see this matchup playing out between Alabama State and St. Francis, PA?
Yeah, Alabama State probably more deserving of a bid. Why? Because it was an automatic bid. Same thing with St. Francis. But when you take a look at St. Francis, it's like usually you come into this, okay, they won their conference, which probably means they were the best team in their conference. St. Francis wasn't. And again, it's a one-game playoff and credit for them for winning it. But you say, what do they do well on offense? Nothing. What do they do well on defense? They defend the three-point line, but outside of that, nothing really as well. And they turn the basketball over at an incredible rate. So when you're looking at a conference, and I know you're going to bring this up, and you brought it up early, and you're right. Like, Alabama State doesn't turn the basketball over. St. Francis does. Like, Alabama State wants to shoot the three-point shot. St. Francis will let you shoot the three-point shot. It just feels like it's a better fit for Alabama State against St. Francis. Now, understand this again. Both of these teams aren't used to being on the national stage and having the spotlight here on an individual, basis and just playing on a neutral site court in Dayton. So I do believe the under is probably the better play in this one. But I got to tell you, trying to take the points and pray, right? Like you really would be doing that with St. Francis because there's not a lot to love. They don't get to the free throw line. They don't rebound. They turn the basketball over. They're okay shooters. Is that enough to sort of carry you through? When anything can happen in a neutral court site game, I understand that. But Alabama State at least has a defined footprint. They're bad on offense, but at least they'll get their shots off, and they'll take three-point shots, and it fits that way. So if I'm willing to lay the points, it's probably with Alabama State, and then they don't shoot the free throw all that well to sort of close out the 3.5. You get what you get. Like, we're going to get one good game, we think, tonight. You're going to get one bad one to start it off, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's the way of it. But I do want to say the atmosphere and the opportunity for these two programs to be on this national stage, to have a standalone window to begin the big dance, that's a really cool thing. I used to be in the camp that I thought automatic bids, automatic qualifiers for the NCAA tournament should not have to play in first 4 play-in games. They should get the full experience of being involved in the round of 64, the travel to the site, to be around all of the other NCAA tournament teams in that opening weekend pod, even if they were to be ousted in the opening round. But then when you really dive into it, the financials of winning an NCAA tournament game are those that you would really never want to pass up. So that financial opportunity plus the window and the atmosphere of what that can mean for your program, I'm now kind of bought all in on even 16 seeds, even champions of a conference tournament having to play on the opening night of the big dance. And I do believe the Hornets and the Red Flash will relish that opportunity. To Donnie's point, one of the key matchup trends you should know for this matchup, Alabama State does not turn the basketball over. They have the 5th best turnover rate in all of college basketball. Out of 364 D1 teams, 5th best turnover rate. St. Francis, PA, bottom 45 in terms of giving you the opportunity to take the ball away. And Donnie, they often get it stolen away. Bad passes, putting the ball in harm's way, and allowing the other defense to shine. They also let you shoot it from 3. Opponents' shots and field goal attempts, more than 43% against the Red Flash. From deep, nearly 43% from Alabama State from 3-point range. The metrics do favor Alabama State. They are a 3.5-point favorite in this matchup. Now, St. Francis pulled off the upset over Central Connecticut in the NEC final. The NEC is not one of our best conferences of the 31 that compete at the D1 level. In fact, it is second worst. The worst conference overall based on the net ratings from Ken Palm, that would be the SWAC, of which Alabama State is the champion. And these are our 2 lowest rated Ken Palm teams into the field of 68. The Red Flash, the worst at 311 out of 364. But again, St. Francis, PA understands this. They have a losing record overall. But the opportunity to excel on the big dance, big stage tonight, that should be one that we enjoy, I think, to see to start us off in Dayton.
Exactly. And just to get into, again, some of the numbers here that make sense, we talked about the turnovers, but also fitting like a glove, right? St. Francis turns it over a ton. Almost 20% of their possessions don't end up in an actual shot. You take a look at Alabama's defense, 19% of the transactions they have on defense, they turn it over. So that's a good match. And then you take a look at Alabama State, where St. Francis doesn't really turn you over all that much, and they don't turn it over. That could be a key because sometimes you could take a look at it, Ben. It used to be like the old Davidson versus VCU days. Like Davidson won't turn the basketball over. VCU's the best in the country at turning it over. Who's going to win that battle? It seems like Alabama State wins both on offense and defense in that battle, which could be just enough. Look, if you're going to give somebody 6 or 7 more shots than the other opponent just on turnovers, that's key in a game where you're separated only by 3.5 points in the odds market.
And the total is 138.5, right? We're not expecting a very high-scoring affair on either side. Donnie, both of the games tonight in Dayton in the first 4, hugely impactful for the South region. Auburn is the number 1 overall seed on the 1 line. In the South region, they await the winner of the matchup between the Hornets and the Red Flash. The winner of UNC and San Diego State becomes the true 11 seed in the South region. An opening round of 64 game against Ole Miss. Slingshot effect? Perhaps, but the first 4 began in 2011. Every year we have seen the first 4 in the NCAA tournament, with the exception of 2019, a team that was victorious in Dayton also won at least 1 game in the round of 64. Something to know as we enter tonight. DRS, any closing thoughts before we send you to the money line, my friend?
Looking forward to it, ready to go. And by the way, the next money line we'll have game number 2 in Major League Baseball as well. 6:10 start once again on a Wednesday morning. How about that?
And on the early line even. DRS, we'll talk tomorrow. More on the early line up next.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's getting staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the 4th number 1 seed.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, 2nd overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line, rounding out our 3 hours to get together today on SportsGrid. A very interesting time in college basketball, of course, with the start of the NCAA tournament tonight. But over the weekend, on Friday afternoon, after the Iowa Hawkeyes were ousted from the Big Ten tournament, a change in the coaching position in Iowa City. After nearly a decade and a half leading the Hawkeyes, Fran McCaffrey was dismissed. His first public comments since being fired as Iowa's head coach with our coach, James Young, JY, on the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Here's what McCaffrey had to tell JY about his thoughts on the situation and his future in college hoops.
Personally, how are you feeling right now as a coach that's done this for a long time? Do you still feel like you have a lot left in the tank?
No question. I love coaching. I love interaction with young people. You think about it, James, and we met many years ago. Being able to go to work on a college campus, mentor and work with young people, I feel like my life hasn't changed in 40 years. Whether it was at Lehigh, UNCG, Siena, or Iowa. We're doing the same things. We're building relationships with families, recruiting student athletes to our school, and helping them reach their potential.
But on the talent side, you haven't had the 4-star, the 5-star recruits. You took Luka Garza. You took the Murray twins. And let's be honest, recruiting in Iowa is not like recruiting in New York City. Talk to me about developing talent, which I think is still so important in today's game.
You know, James, you said it earlier. Okay, what's the key to it all? The key is culture. How do you build culture? And that's what we've done everywhere I've been. You know, it's easy to talk about, okay, I coached 3 teams that went to the NCAA tournament from 1 bid leagues. Nobody else has ever done that. One of the few coaches that have coached 4 teams that have gone to the NCAA tournament. Each one was a different challenge. All right, so how do you convince young people to come play for you? And how do you continue to help them develop? It starts with character. You know, I'm often asked, James, okay, what do you look for in recruiting? Well, you know, you and I can walk into any gym in America and say, okay, that kid can play. You know, he can run and jump. He's got a great handle. He can shoot the ball. He's big and strong. All right, that's easy. All right. Is he unselfish? Does he prioritize winning? Is he a great teammate? How will he respond when things aren't going so well? How does he respond in today's climate where I'm talking to him 1 minute and his agent's talking to him the next? These are different times. You stay true to who you are and you prioritize character.
To me, when I see you on the sideline, people see a guy that's intense, that is no nonsense. I still think about the stare down at the ref on the baseline in one game where I thought it was the entire timeout. If I was an assistant, I probably would have got in trouble because I would have tried to grab you and pulled you away. Anything else in this last minute that you want to let people know that maybe don't know about Coach Fran McCaffrey?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, James. I don't want people to think of me that way. During the heat of battle, there's only one person that can advocate for the players, and that's the head coach, and that's what I do. Beyond that, I love my guys. I'm as friendly as they come when it comes to interacting with fans, with people. I don't talk much louder than this than I'm talking with you throughout the course of the day. I've got a great sense of humor. I like to have fun, not only with my job, with the guys, but in life. My assistants love working for me. And there's an incredible amount of respect that has to be across the board. And that's how I live my life. And that's what creates the passion that I have for this profession.
15 seasons in Iowa City for Fran McCaffrey, 297 wins, the most ever in Iowa men's basketball history for a head coach. It did not work out at the end, and it did seem that the momentum was starting to shift, that a change had to be made for the Hawks. But Fran McCaffrey did a lot of good during his time at Iowa, and for all of that interview, you can check out the Betting Above the Rim podcast with our coach, James Young, chopping it up with Fran McCaffrey. We will continue to get you ready for all that you are going to see around the big dance tomorrow when the early line returns at 8 a.m. Eastern here on SportsGrid.